Hello, everyone. Welcome once again, since last Friday for some of you. My name is David Cunha. I'm the head of delivery at Agile Thinkers, and I'm really excited to have you once again here in this webinar about driving innovation impact with Jobstobedone. So this webinar is brought to you by Agile Thinkers. We are a company that teaches and helps through education, consulting, and event other companies to adopt new ways of working. And that's our mission, because we really believe that all organizations must exist to create products and services that solve the needs of their customers. And they must be able to have a strong purpose, to have motivated teams around those problems they are trying to solve. It's a human job in the end for those teams, for those people, and for their customers. So let's meet Fred. So Fred is the founder of Pro Agile, with over 20 years of experience helping clients delivering innovative products and services in banking, insurance, civil engineering, digital marketing, retail, telecoms, oil and gas sectors. And these days, Fred's primary role is strategic agility advisor, coach, and trainer to McKinsey on Jobstobedone and impact-driven innovation to make their innovations effort more predictable and profitable. So that's the main reason we are here, right? To talk about how we can drive innovation efforts to be more predictable and profitable. Well, a recent study shows that 72% of all new products and service introduction fail to live to expectations. And this happens because companies still struggle to understand and to rationalize all their customer needs. And today's Fred will show you that there are better ways to discover those unmet needs and enable that innovation that everybody is searching for. So without any further ado, Fred, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. Welcome, everybody, from wherever you are. Can everybody hear me okay, first of all? Thumbs up in the chat or something. We're getting thumbs up. Great. So I'm going to talk about driving innovation impact with something called Jobstobedone. In my former life, I used to be an agile coach and so on. This is a departure from what I used to do because I've seen a demand, I think, in innovation. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to cover what's the value of innovation for us? What's the value of innovation for you? Why innovation fails so often. So we're going to look at that, some of the root causes, and what is Jobstobedone and why use it? And how might you apply it within your organization? And then if any of this is of interest, then we've got next steps where you can do further reading, or indeed, give us a call and we can maybe come in and help you guys. So first question is, how valuable is innovation to your company? So as we know, we run our business and we change our business. So we run our business, that makes us money, but we have to change our business if we want to stay ahead or even stand still in the market. And considering that question, interesting, we've got a Menti poll coming up now. Imagine you shut down your innovation loop, if you like. You stopped innovating altogether. So you saved money innovating. You didn't have to spend money on it. But in 3 years, what would probably happen to your profits? Would they go up, stay the same, or go down? See what would you choose out of these three? It's a bit of a trade-off because innovation costs you. But so please select your answer.
Yeah, we're receiving some answer already. If somebody has issue with the first poll, just click down below on the poll section and you'll see the first question popping up. So if you stopped innovating, what's likely to happen to your profits in 3 years? Right now, 82% are saying going down.
Going down. Okay, thank you very much. So this isn't surprising, and there's been lots of studies. McKinsey have done studies on companies which continue to invest in innovation, even in downturns compared to their peers. And what they found is a 10 to 30% improvement in performance with those who continue to invest in innovation. So innovation, as you know, it's really a matter of survival in many ways. And this is a great quote from Charles Darwin. It's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones that are most adaptable to change. So let's another poll question for you in terms of how important is innovation to your company? What would you say on a 1 to 5 scale, if you like, from not important to extremely important? Where would you put innovation in your company's importance scale, priority scale?
Receiving some answer already, 10 answers. Okay, we have 42%, 43% are saying extremely important and 50% very important.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on then. And as David alluded, despite great advances, the majority of innovation initiatives take longer than expected and cost more as well. Here's some data from the Standish Group. There's a link at the bottom. You can look at it in more detail. You can see here so many people are doing Agile, and compared to Waterfall, you're 4 times your chances of succeeding are 4 times better than Waterfall. But still, they are challenged, which means you're coming in late and or over budget half the time, failing 9% of the time. So your failure rate's still low, but it's costing you more time and money than you expected. As I said, you can look at these numbers in more detail. So Agile helps, but it's not a silver bullet. I think most people would agree. So I would like to just take your numbers for a second and put them in and see what is our opportunity or our demand for improving innovation. So what were those numbers again, David? So very important was, how much was that?
So
43 was it?
Yeah. So basically, extremely important was 43.
Extremely 43, yeah, and 50 for the rest. And satisfaction. Oh, we haven't done a satisfaction survey.
Yeah, well,
so
we can do that. We can
let's
do
go
it
back.
now.
Let's go back to that. Let's go back to the satisfaction survey. And yeah, so let's try that. So how satisfied are you with your ability to innovate predictably and profitably at the moment? From not at all satisfied to extremely satisfied. This is looking at your own company.
Well, we have 58% satisfied, 17 somewhat satisfied, and 17 not at all satisfied.
So what's the, okay, let's get the numbers then. Fantastic. So let's see if this works as an experiment. So how many were very satisfied with their innovation process?
So 8%, very satisfied.
Very satisfied. And what about extremely?
0.
0, okay. Okay, so what I've done here is, this is a way of quantifying demand using a Jobstobedone theory. It's a grid which tracks satisfaction against importance. Importance on the x-axis, satisfaction on the y-axis. And you can see you can divide these into 3 areas. Underserved, which is where the importance is very high on the x-axis, but the satisfaction is very low. Overserved is the opposite. And appropriately served is where you are, satisfaction's importance are kind of equal all the way along. Now, what I've done here is you ignore the way this works. You ignore the not so, very, some, and yes, sorry. You ignore the first 3. You just take the very and the extremely important. You add those together. That gives you 93. We times that by 10 to give you a score of 9.3. Okay. Same with in terms of satisfaction. You get 8%. Times that by 10, you get 0.8. This gives you an opportunity score. The opportunity score, as you can see here, lands us in the bottom right-hand corner. So that's quite an extreme value, actually. So it's quite high. So clearly there's an opportunity to improve the way we innovate. So let's move on. So why is innovation so unpredictable and costly? I love this quote from Plato, and I think of this often. The beginning is the most important part of the work. If you think about when things go wrong in the beginning, and then they manifest themselves later on down the line as issues. So it's typically upstream that things go wrong. And if you think about the ways of innovating, you've got essentially three things you need to innovate well, I'd argue. You need to have the right customer with their right needs. You need to build the right thing, and you need to build it right. Now, building it right, you've talked about Scrum, Kanban, DevOps. These really help you build the thing right. To build the right things, lots of methods, design thinking, lean startup, design sprints, etc. And then the inputs, well, there's lots and lots of different ways of understanding your customer needs. You probably use many of these already: demographics, data science, focus groups, ethnographics, psychographics, surveys, etc., etc., etc. And actually, what you see is you typically, two things happen. One is you drown in information, and that information is very ambiguous, and it's very hard to know what your customer needs are. The MIT Sloan School of Management did a survey on customers, on their management, on large companies. They found like 95% of companies don't agree on what a need is, or what a customer need is. So let's have a little poll again. And how about you? How's your company? Is there agreement within your product team as to what a customer need is? There are many, many names for them. So let's see what results do we get? How do we get on there, David?
So right now we have 60% saying no and 40% saying yes.
Okay.
67
so a majority
are
of
saying
people,
no. Yeah.
67 say no. Yeah. So majority of this happens a lot, and everywhere you go, typically you find that most organizations don't agree. There's so many names for needs, they come from so many different directions. And actually, if you look at companies' life expectancy, it used to be 65 years, and it's now gone down significantly to less than 18 years. So survivability of a company and their inability to innovate is, I think, a crucial question. And the question is, how might Jobs to be done help you in that, making your innovation more predictable and profitable? Well, the first thing you need to recognize is where you are. Where are you starting from? What's your starting point in terms of innovation? This is something called the Stacy model, and it plots how well something is understood and agreed in terms of how to do it in uncertainty and what to do in terms of vagueness. And you get in the bottom left-hand corner, well understood, how and what to do is simple. And in the top right-hand corner, you get chaos. And what we're kind of saying here is that if your problems, if you really want to innovate and stick your neck out, if you like, in terms of doing something disruptive or different, then it's a very challenging space to be in. There's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of risk. And the journey, I think, Agile development is actually very good, close to somewhere between the borderline between complicated and complex. And a lot of techniques you can use. So I would position Jobs to be done as a starting point. Now, if you're doing a lot of stuff which is complicated or simple, then you probably don't need Jobs to be done. You probably need something like Lean or Lean Six Sigma if it's simple. But if you're trying to really innovate and you're finding it challenging, then what you really need is stable and ambiguous and a viable list of needs as inputs into your process. So what kind of needs do we need? Well, I talk about the geology of customer needs. A lot of needs are, I would call them topographic, the surface. You get a basic understanding of what the customer's doing, but not a deep understanding. That's why I call it a geology of customer needs. And a good analogy I like to use is Gold Rush. I don't know if you ever watched Gold Rush on Discovery. I watched nearly every episode. And these characters here are fantastic characters to watch. And what really, the kind of lesson learned from this is really about the relationship between exploration versus exploitation. And the two characters which dominate at the beginning are Todd Hoffman and Tony Beets. Todd Hoffman is the rookie and Tony Beets is the seasoned professional who makes money every year. Todd Hoffman's very up and down. Now, you may not be familiar with the Gold Rush process, but essentially it starts with panning to see if there's any gold in the area. You then dig it out, you put it through a massive wash plant, and then that takes out all the gold. And you go around again. And Todd Hoffman, you know, in terms of Agile, the way he's working, he was very, very successful in terms of what you might call operational agility. If it wasn't there, he'd be able to move on quickly. His team were cross-functional, self-motivated. They were multidisciplinary. He had it all, really, but he failed many times to make money. The difference with Tony Beets and the guy on the left and Todd Hoffman is Tony basically had a philosophy of drilling first. In other words, finding out where the gold is. I mean, the analogy is where the customers are, creating a map, and then from that map, then going after the gold. And there's this trade-off, and his catchphrase is no drill, no dig. In other words, if you don't know where the customers are and where the value is, don't go around digging holes. And this is kind of like one of the issues with Agile is iterative and incremental. But if you're digging a hole in the wrong field where there's no gold, you can be as iterative and incremental and perfect Agile as you want. You'll never find any value there. So the idea is you have to balance exploring and exploiting and figure out where's the gold first before you actually then really put effort and money into doing that. And that's the goal really of Jobs to be Done innovation. And there are 5 steps. I'll pause there. Are there any questions so far? David, anything come through?
Not in Q&A, but feel free to ask any questions. Q&A,
okay.
Fred is available.
And if you think of a question as we go along, then just write it in the chat, and David, will be a number of opportunities to catch. Have a little stretch as well. There's a little stretch symbol there. If you feel like you need a stretch, stay awake. So the impact-driven innovation process has basically 5 steps. The first step is to view the market using a jobs to be done lens. Talk about that in a second. The next step is to discover all the needs required for the customer to achieve their job to be done. The third is to survey your market's needs, then find hidden segments of opportunity, and then formulate and deploy a winning strategy. So let's go through some of these. I'll probably have time to go through a couple of these steps. Sadly, we haven't got a lot of time today. So define your market needs. Well, the idea of jobs to be done is it's a view of what customers' needs are. And a normal view is basically something like this, where you can't really see the customer. There's a lot of noise. And jobs to be done lens really focuses on the unmet needs. What is causing a customer to buy your products? So the jobs to be done, really, it's really a lens which you can use to observe markets, customers, needs, competitors, and customer segments differently. And I'm using a lot of the inspiration from a guy called Tony Alwick. He's the founder of Strategy, a very successful company over the last 25 years. Who's done many, many successful innovation initiatives. And really, it starts with this customer perspective, and that customers don't want a 1/4-inch drill. They want a 1/4-inch hole. And I know we are drill makers, but actually oftentimes we lose sight of the fact of what the customer wants as an outcome, which is the hole. And what causes a customer to buy your solution? Well, it's probably not their demographics or their psychographics or their ethnographics or anything else. The most likely reason they want to is because they are struggling to get the job done. There's something they're trying to do and they're struggling to do it. So in this example, get to the destination on time. Now, if you're struggling to do that, then obviously an answer, a solution, one of the solutions is a sat nav. And a friend of mine once said to me, buy a sat nav, Fred, it's cheaper than a divorce. And I totally agree with that. So getting to destination on time. So when we're trying to create products, we have to create what's called product market fit, or market product fit, as I prefer to call it. So you have the market, which there's someone who's trying to achieve something and they're struggling to do it. And that causes them to search for a product or a service to help them solve that problem. So actually, what we need to do, if you want to start with jobs to be done thinking, is park the solution space and take a fresh look at what's going on in the market, which is a combination of the job to be done and the need the customers are wanting to achieve. So an example of this might be the music industry. Now, the jobs to be done would define the music industry as music enthusiasts listening to music. So listening to music is the job to be done, and the people are music enthusiasts. So it's a combination of the people and what they're trying to do. That's a proactive way of defining your markets. If you define your markets by product, as many do, then that's quite unstable, and you're constantly chasing and being reactive. So examples might be, for example, tradesmen trying to cut a piece of wood in a straight line. As you can see, this statement is agnostic of the solution. Interventional cardiologist restoring blood flow in an artery. That's basically what we call the job executor, the end user, and what they're trying to achieve. Or a legal team discovering information that supports or refutes a case. Or a cybersecurity manager protecting a website from cyber threats. So this is the way to define and size your markets and value your markets. And of course, the great thing about this is these are stable markets. These don't change. The solutions change, but the markets remain stable. So once you've defined your market, you need to start discovering all the needs required within your space. So there's an element of knowing what's in your space. So this is a jobs to be done needs framework. As you can see in the center working outwards, you've got three types of customer. You've got the job executor, the purchase decision maker, and the lifestyle product team. Now, each of these have different needs. And the main one, of course, is the core functional job from the job executor. That's the core need. You have a number of job steps. These core functional jobs and the job steps, we elicit these from the real customers in probably 5 to 10 interviews, 5 to 10 2-hour interviews. And what you're trying to build is what's called a MECE list of needs, a mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive list of needs. So the job to be done, we saw before with the job execution trying to do, has a number of steps. So we decompose the outcome, the final outcome, into a number of steps. And these steps have their own sub outcomes, if you like, mini outcomes. It's not the same as a customer journey map. This is different. This is customer journey map is more in the solution space. This is more in the problem space. So the question you're figuring out is, what is the customer trying to achieve, regardless of the solution? So for example, in listening music, you've got, defining, locating. So this is a standard job map. And you typically have 8 steps, but you can expand it. And this is all the jobs that are required to execute the job, if you like. So execution is the one in the middle, which is the listening one. We often focus on that one, but there's jobs that happen before the execution stage and after the execution stage. In that, we're also trying to capture something like 50 to 150 outcome statements within this job map. So you get a very detailed understanding of what the customer is trying to achieve, regardless of the solution, in a very specific format. So in summary, how are we doing for time, David?
Yeah, we still have 10 minutes, around 10 to 15
okay.
minutes. Yeah.
Okay, fine. I'll be quick on this one then. So just in summary, I haven't got time to go into all the detail, but essentially what we're trying to do is you're trying to define the market. you're trying to define all the needs within that that market. So that's the job executor, the buyer, and also the product lifecycle support team. From that, you survey the market. You figure out, just like we did now, how important is it to you? How satisfied are you? That gives you a score, just like we did now. And from that score, you can figure out which needs are being overserved, underserved, or appropriately served. That goes into a strategy. There's an innovation strategy, which basically focuses on whether you're doing the job better or worse. Is it going to cost, are you going to be able to charge more or less? And you've got these different strategies you can employ. We haven't got time to get into those today. From that, and a combination of the needs, the prioritized needs, which are ranked in opportunity score order, you can figure out which are the most unmet needs. And a good example you can see, we'll give you some references after to read up on, is Bosch. They created a circular saw for the US market based on the job to be done, which is tradesmen trying to cut a piece of wood in a straight line. And that was a very successful endeavor. So it helps your company in 9 ways. It helps in terms of positioning existing offers. It helps improve existing offers. It finds the best innovation solution for your given markets. You're going to be disruptive, dominant, discrete, etc. It allows you to think about the scaling opportunities. How much could this scale? What's the size of this prize? It looks at the viability or the willingness to pay for solutions. It looks at what innovation investments you should focus on and cut. Research and development, merger and acquisitions. The premise is that customers want to get more of their jobs done. So if you create a platform solution which gets more of their jobs done, then you might it might be worth your while acquiring companies or investing in technologies which are going to help you do that. It also looks at adjacent market opportunities and the best fit for new technologies based on the market needs. So everything starts with the market needs. So wrapping up really in terms of next steps, lots of further reading. So I've been focusing on the top 2 books, which is Tony Orwick's books, is What Customers Want and Jobs to Be Done. Highly recommended. He's also written a number of articles for the Harvard Business Review. There are also a number of other very, very good books on jobs to be done. They tend to be less quantitative. They need more qualitative in terms of understanding the customer's jobs. These are all highly recommended books. Have a look at you. But the one I like the most is Tony Orwick's. He's got a 25-year track record. So in terms of building capability, we have a capability building plan. We're working with Agile thinkers to build a plan. You've just done the overview. We've got an awareness session, which is a bit more expanded on what we've done today. We then propose, if that goes well, a practitioner session, which is essentially a little bit like a design sprint, if you understand what that is. But it's basically a 2-3 day practitioner session where you get to practice to cook, if you like, practice your cooking, get ready for cooking. And then in preparation for actually doing a full survey in your company with real customers. And that's actually probably something like a 2 to 3 month endeavor, in fact, to do a full survey. And indeed, if you want to train the trainer, there's an instructor option as well. We'd love your feedback on what you thought of today's session. I appreciate there's a lot of information, but I think David's going to put in the chat a link to a Google form, which is only about 5 questions.
The form will pop up on the feedback that will be sent after the session. And tomorrow it will send another reminder for you to answer. Yeah.
Fine. Yeah. Okay, so
it's automated, yeah.
Automated, great. Yeah. So that was it. Stretch, and any questions from anybody?
Well, I know there is some product owners and business analysts in the house, so feel free to ask any question.
Even go off mute if you prefer.
believe that everybody is clear about the topic. How do you see? So I have a couple of questions, but I would like the group to ask them. So Fred, I know that I love that part about the map where you see the underserved, overserved, and I know that is a huge process from the day one until you have some data to analyze and to take decisions in the end, because it's all about making decisions about what you're gonna invest next. But how do you see the whole process? Can you tell us a little bit about the whole process in a nutshell and the challenges that I can find as somebody that is trying to build a new product or to change the service that I already have on my offering, but I'm still not happy with it. So can you tell us a little bit about the process and the challenges we can find?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the skill is in interviewing the customer to really elicit these outcome statements, to really understand what they're trying to achieve in terms of, so if I go back a bit. Oops. So the skill is, this is really the hardest skill to master, in terms of you'll already know who your customer is, and most of you, I'm sure, will. You'll quite easily, or will not find it too difficult to define the core job to be done. What are they trying to achieve? You need to break down the steps, which isn't too bad in terms of what steps are they taking from the very beginning of the job they're trying to achieve to the end, to concluding it. These statements are the things which take the most time and are most difficult, because we tend to think in terms of solutions. And these are solution agnostic statements of what the customer is trying to achieve at each step. And that's probably the hardest skill to master in doing this. So that would probably be the thing I think that most companies find difficult. So that requires some help and support in terms of doing that. The other thing which often companies find challenging is, by the time you've put this into a survey, you can imagine you've got 150 outcome statements. It's not a Mickey Mouse thing to go off and do, right? In terms of composing this into a survey, you've got a lot of consumption chain jobs. You'll have financial jobs. You'll have related jobs, emotional jobs. You need to put that into a survey, and that will require your customer to take about maybe 20 minutes to complete the survey. Yeah. Now, the simple answer to doing that is you pay them to do it. And Tony Olwick's been doing this for 25 years. There are companies which can help you do that. So it is an investment in really understanding deeply your customer. This isn't like, I don't know, a design sprint or something like learning how to do a design sprint. This is a serious endeavor, a serious undertaking. But the data you get back, if you get this right, the data you get back changes the future of your company. One of them, for example, I didn't give an example of this one here, interventional cardiologists. One of the ones which came out of the survey as top when they interviewed surgeons was the minimize the likelihood of renostosis. Renostosis is when an artery blocks up again after you've unblocked it. And that came out as a top unmet need when they surveyed the cardiologists, a large sample. And that was actually where stents were invented. Stents came out of this research when they figured out that actually the problem that people are trying to solve, you've got a very clear problem that, arteries block up again. How do you stop that? Well, then you can get into the solution space. The Bosch one was a good example where they came up with top 10 needs, unmet needs, and they designed a winning circular saw within 3 hours of getting the list. Now, it wasn't that they didn't have ideas. They literally had thousands of ideas. They just couldn't choose
which one to pick,
are
right?
which ones to pick, which ones are going to have traction in the market. And it's impossible to say until you've interviewed your customers and really understand that. So it is an investment in time.
So it's an investment
but it's extremely valuable.
Yeah, so it's investment to have a better discovery process. So when you invest later on the solution, you have a higher probability to really nail the needs, unmet needs of the customers.
Yeah.
And the challenges, are several, right? Because as you're saying, having interviews are a bit long. We have to give something in return. So there is some companies that pay or give Amazon gift cards to customers so they can survey them out and get some intelligence from there, right?
Yeah. So we've got some good questions coming through here from Nuno.
That's the. So, can you see the questions?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Perfect.
So absolutely, you absolutely interview the customers to get their needs, and then you survey the customers to figure out what proportion of those customers' needs are being unmet, if that makes sense. So absolutely, you're involving customers the whole time. So then I think hopefully that answers. And customers actually break down into three types of customers. You've got the job executor, the buyer, and you've got the product support team. Now, sometimes they're the same person. So for example, if you're buying a toothbrush, you're the buyer, you use a toothbrush and you maintain the toothbrush, right? But sometimes when it's more complex, they are three separate people. So hopefully that answers the first question. Is it a good idea to have more jobs to be done in the list in the beginning and then in refinement throw the jobs not aligned to customer needs? Right, so it's a good question, this one. Actually, what you'll find is when you interview different customers, they'll state different needs. Now, what you're trying to get is a mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive list, because different customers will have different problems, if you like, during the journey. Not everyone will have all the same needs, if that makes sense. But what you're trying to do is to get a full list of all the needs for all your customers, right? So, you know, John Smith may have need 1, 5, and 7. Adam Smith may have 3, 7, and 6. If that makes sense. But what you're trying to do is you're surveying all the needs, because you don't know in advance when you survey the customers which ones are going to be the most unmet. So you need a mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive list. And that's what takes the time. But once you have it, it's stable and you can reuse it time and time again. So hopefully that answers your question. In your experience, to break the job steps, you think interviews are effective? Yeah, or just applying some of the job shadowing or similar. Yeah, the problem with things like ethnographic research and other types of customer research is they don't have a clear goal in mind. They don't really they're not asking the right questions. Whereas in jobs to be done, you're actually asking the customer, in trying to achieve this job, what steps are you going through? And in this step, what are you doing? What are you doing next? What are you doing next? So it's a functional view of how the customer is trying to achieve the overall outcome, the overall job to be done, and it's figuring out within that why things are going wrong, right? Because you're essentially looking at why things are going wrong and why it's taking time. So that where there's pain, there's gain. I'm sure you're aware of that. Where there's a customer struggle, then there's an opportunity to create a solution which saves them time, which makes it more predictable, more reliable for them. And so that's what you're trying to tease out. And you're phrasing those questions in such a way, when you ask the customer, are you typically in two ways? Are you minimizing the time to do this, or are you minimizing the likelihood of something going wrong? And those two questions are very insightful in terms of steering your product solution to something which is going to really, really help the customer. If enough customers are saying, it's taking me too long, I'm very frustrated, then you know you're onto something. You know you can create a solution which can minimize the time or minimize the likelihood of something bad happening to you as you go along. Hopefully that answers your question. Thank you, Nuno.
Perfect.
How are we doing for time?
We just have a couple of minutes, like 5 minutes right now.
Right.
AJ on the chat asks if it will be possible to get the list of books. Yeah, I think you can show the link, the slide again, and anybody can take a screenshot if you want. Feel free to do that. Yeah, the Jobstobedone from Tony Ulwick is very good. The Innovator's Dilemma also. Yeah, what the customers want, I didn't read that, but it seems quite. It's from Tony also. It's from another. It's from Tony.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So the top ones I'd recommend to start with, because I think that it's the most comprehensive way of really understanding your customer and understanding their needs and building products which satisfy or address unmet needs. For me, it's the most rigorous approach. It's also, at the same time, it's not a lightweight thing. The others below are nice reads. They're nice. You can pick them up. You get a bit of inspiration. But really, they don't go far enough in really quantifying the degree of unmetness of needs, if that makes sense. That's the bit I find which lacks in the ones below. But they're very inspirational. They're very good books.
Yeah, and we are, as Agile Thinkers, we are partnering with Fred right now to teach your companies all these topics, because I really believe that this must be taught and practices inside your environment context, because there is product services, there is processes that, well, you must protect them from the public, and all this discussion, all these surveys must be prepared in your context, in your environment, in your company, so you can think about what to do next. What to do as a company? We should invest in the new challenges and new endeavors. So yeah, Fred is working with us right now in this process, and so feel free to send us any email or any contact about if you want to know more about Jobstobedone and how we can help you, helping your customers getting the job done, as Fred said. Any more questions? Just one last question that I have. So I see Jobstobedone also the theory part, because then there is a whole process that there is a lot of things to explain for sure. But I see that Jobstobedone theory and the concept, it works as a communication tool also regarding the outcomes, what's the job to be done, all that work that must be prepared. So how do you see, based on your experience, Fred, how do you see Jobstobedone to be introduced to a wide public? Because you have marketing, you have sales, you have then on the solution, of course, you have engineering. If you're talking about engineering, any kind of engineering, it's not only software. But how do you see Jobstobedone to be introduced inside a company, step by step, into the several departments that I see here: sales, marketing, planning, leadership, R&D.
Yeah.
How do you see this?
Well, often the low-hanging fruit with Jobstobedone is you find out once you've done the survey that that your customers are saying they're being underserved in a certain area, and actually you've already got a solution for it, right? So you've already got a solution for it, but the customer's not registering it as a solution for your that your company has. So oftentimes it's really the low-hanging fruit is remarketing your product around its job to be done. What outcome is it bringing them? An example here was a medical, one of Tony Ulwick's examples is a medical bandage company. And what they found was everyone was talking about, you know, it helps you heal faster and things like that as marketing messages. But actually when they surveyed nurses and the actual patients, what they really wanted was to prevent complications that would get infected. So what they did is they repositioned the marketing of the product, same product, they just changed the words to position it to it's preventing complications later down the line, and their sales went up 20%. So oftentimes it isn't that your solution is bad, it's oftentimes that you're not really understanding the job the customer's trying to achieve, and you're selling it as a product instead of a, I talked about a 1/4-inch drill, whereas a 1/4-inch hole. We're very good at kind of talking about the drill and its functions and its speed and everything else. But actually, a customer wants the hole making, right? By any means, whether it's your drill or not, So oftentimes we lose sight of that in becoming very technical around our solution, and we forget that actually what we're trying to do is solve that unmet need.
Yeah, that case is amazing, because just by changing the position, I mean, the product is the same, but just changing the position and the value proposition that you are sharing with the world, people can understand a little bit more what you're doing and how you can solve their problem. So it's it's a way of not only about thinking about new products and new services, but also to introspect and to see what's going on your company, and to understand, well, I'm transmitting the message the right way. How can I adapt what we have right now so I can bring up the revenue or the growth of these products and services? Yeah, good insight. Thank you, Fred.